Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the final day of Parallel, a multi-dimensional digital space hosted by the 2021 graduating classes of Parsons BFA and MFA Design and Technology. If you missed the sessions from day 1 and 2, you'll be able to watch the recordings on our website. Parallel's 3-day live event features talks, film screenings, and virtual galleries of students' thesis projects. We're excited to have artists and scholars from the global community of creative technologists to engage with our work and share critical lessons learned from their own. The exhibition represents our shared experiences as a collective of students operating in a remote setting, moving forward in unity, undeterred by separations of space and time. Alongside the live event, we have a digital platform to showcase all of our work. You can visit parsons.edu/dt to dive into the creative technology projects. Today's event will feature student presentations and a gallery walkthrough. The first session will showcase 2 groups of students, each followed by a Q&A with our guest artist. There will be a 5-minute break in between the 2 sessions. Before we start the show, here are some brief housekeeping notes. Today's event is also live streaming on YouTube channel. It will also be recorded and made available after the show on our website at parsons.edu/dt. To leave comments for today's presenters, we encourage all of you to send them over chat. For our community guidelines, this is a safe space. We expect everyone as speakers and viewers to treat others with respect, care, and sensitivity. Before we kick off the event, I want to welcome our Session 1 guest artist, Juan Pablo Garcia Sosa, JPEGs. Juan is a Berlin-based Colombian designer, researcher, and artist fascinated by the clash between emerging technologies and popular culture in tropical areas. His practice explores how emerging technologies are remixed and reappropriated in tropical areas and develop alternate understandings and systems. He researches and develops future and alternate realities with real and semi-fictional organizations in a wide range of media and visual experiments. He explores ways of sensibilization through narrative experiences of interaction and envision tropical futures. Juan, we're so thrilled to have you join us today.
I'm very glad to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. Now let's bring the first group of students onto the virtual stage. This group uses apps to approach wellness from a holistic perspective, from tracking health to improving oral communication. I now welcome our first student presenter, Jessica.
So hi everyone, my name is Jessica and my thesis is about health tech and fitness data. So my project focuses on the data people are collecting through wearable and health devices. So during quarantine, when I moved back to Vancouver, I had a lot of time on my hands, so I picked up running as a hobby and downloaded Strava as a fitness app to help me keep track of my running goals. The app uses a runner's workout data to create a community and encourage users to push themselves. The more that I interacted with Strava, I really liked the sense of competition it brings, and I became very interested in the obsessive part of people keeping track of their data and how it motivates people to do better. It just became a part of my daily routine, and I started to feel a lot more better about myself. So this is when I started to think about all the other health apps that I have on my phone and I don't use consistently or don't even notice. And what exactly does this data supposed to do? So despite the fact that although most people have health apps already downloaded on their iPhones or own a wearable device, a lot of people don't like to manually enter their data because it's difficult to know this information yourself. So for example, my Apple Watch will tell me the pace and distance of running, but I don't know how to actively use this data to help me improve. So while health apps and wearables look cool and trendy, in reality, it just kind of sits on my phone and not a lot of data is connected to it, or people just don't bother with it at all. So a lot of wearable data is often difficult to interpret and is not medically relevant to users. So users mainly just want to know if they are healthy or if there are any anomalies within their data or if they should see a doctor. My objective is to change the dialogue between physical therapists and running and health app users while providing actionable insights for providers to analyze and provide a more accurate diagnosis. My design question is, how can we better leverage the power of health apps and smartwatches so it contributes to positive behavioral changes in fitness for the user? So physical therapy is an integral part of recovery for many patients. I was able to conduct 2 sit-down interviews with practicing physical therapists and talk to them about treating patients and their educational and training background. Both physical therapists said that it would be helpful to have data that showcase the distance, intensity, stress factor, and knee pain that the user has. Although they said that it was important to focus on the exercises, forms, and specific experiences. I also got to interview patients who were also interested in improving their fitness goals. Most of them said that they want the device to help them improve their form and fitness. They said that by translating their fitness data into actionable insights will be very beneficial for them. So I've made my target audience for athletes and people interested in fitness and running and want a more accurate diagnosis of their physical fitness when they go to physical therapy sessions. So through my research and interviews, I was able to narrow down these as the most common types of running injuries. I also did some research on behavioral change and what facilitates positive change. So research in psychology has shown that confidence, effort, and perseverance in which individuals pursue a change in behavior depends heavily on their belief in their ability to perform the new behavior. So I came up with these new value propositions. On the consumer side, users will benefit by improving their running form and also prevent injuries before they occur. I also wanted to reduce the frequency of physical therapy visits and doctor visits, since these injuries are very small and can be very easily ignored. The app will also help the user to connect the physical therapy side of things, which can overall improve patient outcomes. So by bringing both of these together, there is a more valuable patient and doctor interaction. So these are the key design principles I plan to follow for the next steps. I plan to create humanistic and interactive elements, enhance a sense of connection and trust between the patient and provider, and provide relevant suggestions based on the passive data collected. So overall, my thesis aims to improve users' running form and prevent injuries using an assistant app that provides actionable insights backed by physical therapists and running experts. So for the form, I created a system where wearables and phones are connected to the physical therapist screen. So patients who download this service will have the option to connect their already existing data on their phones or wearables and link it all up into one device where they can get a very detailed analysis of their progress and goals. The goal is to focus on building the relationship between the wearable user and physical therapist. So this is an interactive prototype which will have interactive screens and is hypothetical rather than functional.
Jessica, sorry to interrupt, but we can't see your video.
Oh, can you see it now?
No.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So for future iterations of Perform, it would be vital to carry out extended research testing over several weeks with both physical therapists and runners. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Jessica. Up next, we have Nina.
Hello everyone, I'm Nina. Today, I'm gonna present the process of a tablet-based application called My Spoken Story. My Spoken Story is a tablet application that follows a concept statement. The statement is how to improve and educate Chinese children's oral expression skills at the early stage. After studying children's confidence, the teachings of expressions in Chinese society, and the cognitive development, I find that storytelling is a stress-free and fun way for children to start expressing creativities and sharing ideas. The target user for my spoken story is mainly three types of person. They are kids aged 5 to 10, their parents, and the educators. Here will be a short intro to explain how my spoken story functions. My Spoken Story is a tablet application that encourages Chinese children to speak up. This project uses animation, chooses own voices, and actionable motion graphics to make expressions accessible to children as a game. Let's get started. Create a brand new story by clicking on My Stories, or you can use an open-ended sample story. Step 1. You can create and select the sample story to start. Step 2. Watch and understand the provided story.
A sunny morning, the class boarded the school bus together. Today was the day of the group spring trip. The school bus was on its way to the destination, Forest Park. Everyone was very happy, and the bus was driving while the students were singing songs, and they arrived in a flash. The students started to have free time.
Step 3. You can start to create your own story. Pick up the characters, drag and place them into the right positions. Type the characters will give them emotion. Step 4. You will pick up the creations, drag and place them into the positions. It will interact with the characters. Step 5. Press record. Tell your stories and use your finger to move the characters. Step 6. Create a new clips. Repeat the step 3 to step 5 until the end of your story. Combine all the clips together to make your animation. Awesome! You make your own spoken story. After introducing how my spoken story functions, next I will show the user testing process. I have invited children aged from 5 to 10 and their parents to participate in this test. The main purpose of this user test is to investigate whether the participant could express a complete story orally through the user flow of this application. Therefore, all the user testing was done by paper prototype. Before giving this test to kids, their parents need to help with some preparation. First, the child's parents need to print out the edit document. Then, they need to cut out the paper along the blue line. Finally, after sorting the piece of papers and prepare the pens, the user test was ready to begin. To test with kids, parents will show the kids the sample story, which translates into Chinese. And then, Kids will use the paper card to set up their story. Parents help them to record their stories.
我今天给你们讲个故事。今天同学们都去春游啦，他们到了一个郊外。小红在用网子抓蝴蝶，玩得非常开心。而多多和小华正在踢球，玩得有点。绿油油和乐乐在开心地玩荡秋千，而那边的明明和多多在踢球，而且是跑着踢。
The user test made me realize that the user flow of my spoken story is effective, especially the sample story. In addition, my spoken story can be studied more closely in terms of language skills, creativities, and socialization, making this application not only helpful for Chinese children, but also globally. Here is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nina. Now we have the last presenter from this group, Mariana.
Hi, my name is Mariana Shahari, and this is Journal RX. An app that tracks mental health in order to improve pediatric cancer treatment and reduce the lifetime burden of trauma and depression that many patients experience. The work I'll be showing was done for my thesis at Parsons, as well as the startup program at Cornell Tech, where I built a team of 5 other students who then helped with some of the prototypes you'll be seeing later on. A major issue in healthcare right now is the gap between how mental health and physical health are treated. I saw this a few years ago when my little sister was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, bone cancer, and seeing the toll that it took on her mental health from the moment of diagnosis through treatment, and even now that she's years into remission and luckily cancer-free, it really stuck with me how there's no substantial attention to how a child's mental health is impacted during treatment for a life-threatening disease like this. So I did some research and I found that 50% of lifetime mental illness begins by the age of 14 and then goes up to 75% by the age of 24. And that's if you're healthy and not fighting off some disease like this. Then I was shocked when I saw that every 3 minutes a child is diagnosed with cancer. And that really made me realize just how big of an issue this is. And then I was shocked when, as I did further research, I noticed there weren't a lot of precedents for addressing this issue. And so I started to realize that this is due to a lack of human-centered design, because when I ended up going straight to the source and interviewing providers and patients in remission, they really had a lot to say, they just weren't being asked. As I was talking to the patients and the providers, it was clear how isolated and unheard the patients felt during treatment, and even once they were discharged, expected to kind of resume life as if nothing had really happened. And the providers do really see the need for a tool like this and are more than willing to adopt the new technology. They just haven't really had the opportunity. So as we started to go into development, we really wanted to focus on how to maintain engagement without then overwhelming the patient and the provider. And we first want to start with the age group of 13 to 18 because a lot of the larger hospitals have what's called an adolescent and young adult program, which would be a good community to start within. And then eventually we want to add the ability to alert family and friends, because a lot of the time the patient doesn't necessarily need medical attention. They really just need to know that they have a good support system. So the solution I'm proposing here is the ability to track mental health, mood, and pain all in one app through a daily check-in that catches these mental health issues before they progress in a way that's accessible for care team treatment management. And then eventually we want to incorporate this into the current EMR systems to ensure ease of use for providers and prevent any added work. And then step 3 will be adding a detailed treatment plan that has the ability to ask questions and add notes to improve patient-provider communication when the family can't always be with their child. So once the child is diagnosed, we want to create a baseline of how to monitor their mental health. And to do that, we want to use the Teen PHQ-9, which is a diagnostic tool for depression currently used in hospitals. However, it's not done digitally, so it's kind of forgotten later on. So by using this in a digital format, we can have a baseline of how to track their mental health as they start using the daily check-in, and then it can be adapted as they move on. So for the daily check-in, we created a web prototype for security issues, but we'll start by asking them for their mood. And then the rest of the questions have logic jumps. So if they're in pain, we'll ask them to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And then if not, we'll move on to the next questions, which are about sleep and so on. So each one adapts to how they're feeling that day. And then once they've done their daily check-in, we want to give them some action items to go off of. So this will depend on their response, of course, as well as the patient, as well as the hospital's resources. So if they have a lower level of stress that's more self-manageable, we'll suggest using a meditation app. Whereas if it's something more severe, we want them to talk to a therapist or maybe a family member or friend. And then this is for the provider. So once they log in, they'll be able to see if they have any patients that are flagged. And if they're high alert, they'll show up in red. And then they'll be able to see that their patient had their pain level go up from a 2 to an 8 in the last 3 days. They've had a really awful mood and have been using the words nervous and worried a lot. And then they'll see a breakdown of the answers from the last day, the last week, and then the last month, which will show a breakdown of charts for their mood, sleep, and pain. And then eventually they'll be able to access the treatment plan. So as far as next steps, the original plan was to test these prototypes with Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. The head of their AYA program was more than willing to work with us, but we found out recently that we would need an IRB, which is something that takes months, if not years, to obtain. And it's needed to get pretty much any information from a hospital. So we pivoted and are now looking to partner with a clinical researcher to then create a focus group of patients who are in remission so we can ethically gather data outside of a hospital and then move forward to obtaining funding and possibly partnering with a hospital for support to build out the app. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, Nina, and Mariana. Now we will invite Juan to ask each of you one question in regards to your work. Juan, take it away.
Thank you for sharing your projects to all of you, Jessica, Nina, and Mariana. I actually see like some intersecting elements like in all these projects, especially like involving a human aspect in these interfaces, kind of. So I'm gonna begin with Jessica's project, Proform. I find interesting like how like there's an intention on transforming these data generated in these tracking apps into information and involving a human aspect in that, like with the involvement of therapists. So that itself, I find very relevant, like how to not only like give sense to this bunch of numbers that we get. So that already is something that I find interesting. What I wonder is then like how could one be more explicit on this human aspect of it, or to say it in another way, like with all these Zoom calls and all that, and like I personally often feel like speaking to a bunch of letters without having any feedback from an audience behind the screen. I must trust someone is behind that. And I wonder how this interface could make it more explicit that there's a human behind this, and it's not an algorithm, or not only an algorithm that is prescribing this recipes or this suggestions to you.
So basically the whole system, I think I had a bit of troubles kind of trying to create like a more humanistic element, but I really just wanted to focus on just the relationship between the provider and the patient by using data that people are already collecting. So that's why I chose wearables, because most people already have wearables and most people already have health apps already downloaded on their phones. So it's not something extra that you have to do. But I wanted to create like as much of a humanistic kind of on the spot appointment element as possible. That's why I wanted to be able to have the patient kind of create appointments on the spot, and then have that kind of option where they can contact the physical therapist right away. And if the physical therapist isn't available, they would have just kind of already insights as to how to improve their form already.
Okay, thank you. Shall I go on or comment? I guess I go on. Like, I sorry that I'm getting to know still like the dynamic. I'll go to you, Nina. Also, thanks for sharing your project with us today. What I find interesting in your project is like how through tackling these quote unquote social skills issues, or like this situation of how could one provoke or catalyze that from an early age. People from the Chinese communities like start developing a relevant, important communication aspect in their lives. I see you in your project description, you emphasize the word or the phrase "speak up," which I find interesting in the political critical aspect of speaking up. And so not only like developing communication skills, but actually also like a critical position to the realities and systems we live in. And I wonder, I also kind of feel like your project, I don't know, this is my lecture, I don't know if that's also the intention, but it feels like a Trojan horse in that sense of how could that stimulate potentially critical positions from an early age in your case in the Chinese community. So my question more specifically will be how could this environment bring like really push this playground for word making. So there's like this interaction in which you're composing words and interactions and situations, and how could we how does this interface app could bring that to extreme, maybe provoking subversions of normality. I speculate, like not a single normality, but like other situations. Does it make sense? When I was
Yeah, so like for my thinking is like cause it include different things. So like I think it will be a sample story, like it is open-ended and made from others. So like you are able to kind of put some thoughts inside those kind of like those like sample stories, so that when you go through like kind of like some kind of social issues, or like to educate the young kids about the little the environments, or like the politics stuff, it will be much easier for them to practice at the same times. So like I think provide like open-ended story first, and then ask them to create or to learn by themselves. It is a more motivated way for them to kind of start to speak up, start to talk about their opinions instead of like just listening to what others say.
Yeah, that's what I found interesting also, like, and actually like the visual language and like the codes, the visual codes and sounds that you use like for this I don't know, yeah. I felt it was like a nice neat Trojan horse for some more things, but anyways, thank you very much, Nina.
Thank you.
And Mariana, thanks for sharing your project. And with your project, also from what you shared today and the description I read, I think in the website of this show or virtual show, you mentioned also that it appeals like to a personal story, and that it's these situations that maybe are we're not so aware, or I mean, one is not so aware, like not to generalize commonly. That happens so often, that also have some impact on families, and I, or first I wanted like to say, like I find very relevant this approach, like to approach, to give responses or approach these situations, combining several kinds of health, like not only a physical one, but combining physical, mental, and emotional health. Like I find it like super relevant, and I think it like these the health systems we live in could benefit from combining with other cosmologies, kind of, or like other health systems, or like ones that appeal not only to the physical one, but also then to the emotional and the mental one. What I want to say with the families, coming back to that, is like, if you see this project also having some impact in families and not only the individual patient, and how is this diagnosis also for this recipe involving them? You mentioned sometimes they are involved and sometimes not, but if so, how is that, and if that's relevant or not?
Yes, thank you for your question. That's definitely a big part of it and something I've considered since the beginning. Having seen how few family members have the ability to be with the patient most times, I wanted to make that a big part of it, because they do want to stay up to date even when they can't be there. So having a whole portal that's just for the family, so then they can keep up to date with not just the treatment plan, but how the child is progressing, and then they can also help be there by getting alerts along the way with the doctors. So if they do need just more support, emotional support that day, they can have a FaceTime with the family member or schedule a family FaceTime so that they can feel that support from the outside, even when they can't always be with them, and that the family stays up to date, so they don't have to kind of play catch up when they do have the ability to come visit. So this kind of keeps them up to date and allows the patient to feel that they're supported the whole time. So everyone kind of just feels more in the loop and involved throughout the process.
I wonder um, if if there could be a shift of like like that it how could I frame it? It's something that I've been thinking a lot recently, in general, with solidarity, and that it's like something more that goes beyond solidarity, and like being supportive to your child, but actually acknowledging that this is something you cannot separate, and that also like as a family member you are also a patient, kind of, and you should get like then a treatment, no, a physical, mental, and emotional treatment. And I don't know, like that's a little bit my position, and also like well, I completely, I don't want it to make it too complex, because many things are like going in my head, and but
No, I agree. Yeah.
but I think it would be something interesting to explore these interconnections and non-separability, and like yeah, that's something, that's what I want to ask and come that part.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's something that even in my thesis paper, I mentioned how ideally this would become more of a standard for mental health being part of any physical health treatment or diagnosis like this, and that making the family having like not just a therapist for the child, but also for the family to have them meet together and process it together, because it does impact every part of the family dynamic, as I saw with my sister. And so I think that helps everyone, like you said, mentally, physically, emotionally, it's all connected. So any point that we can help from will impact the others for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Thanks, Juan, for those questions and feedback, and the students for your responses. Now let's bring on the next group. This group uses augmented and virtual reality to teach audiences new things and raise awareness about critical topics. I now welcome our first student presenter, Sherry, sorry.
Hi everyone, I'm Sherry and I'm going to present my thesis project, Undercover. In January 2020, the epidemic prevention methods were very strict in Beijing. I got tired of filling out the daily report of my movement through the city, and I was very curious if I could be invisible to the Beijing surveillance system. Here are a series of test images that show the security cameras on my camera. I chose two different commute methods to start my embodied research. One is a 25-minute walking path, and the other is a two-stop subway ride. It was astounding for me to find 46 security cameras within the mere 1.7 kilometer long walk. The number of security cameras inside each subway station was about 30, which was far more than I'd expected, and these were just the ones that were visible. After doing the research, I realized that the surveillance is invading the public space I inhabit, leaving me nowhere to hide. Countries and regions across the world are installing a great number of CCTV cameras, but the case is especially serious in China. Of the top 10 most surveilled cities, 9 of them are from China. Nevertheless, the surveillance network will continue to expand. According to a report published by IHS Markit, by 2021, the total number of CCTV cameras installed in China will reach 560 million, approximately 1 for every 2.4 people. In addition, China is doubling down surveillance in the cities by pioneering the usage of facial recognition technology. That means the government can locate and find a certain citizen within seconds. The network of surveillance cameras is not only expanding rapidly, but is also equipped with advanced technologies to instantly recognize and locate human faces. As a result, people are often unconsciously being surveilled, having no idea when and where they are being watched. This is an unfair situation, but we can possibly reverse it by forging an alliance to gain an equal place in the conversation. To reclaim agency, we have to be able, first of all, to actually see the cameras, and secondly, to hide from them. Undercover is a conceptual AR game design that aims to raise awareness of surveillance among the youngsters through the collective contribution of them. The play is embedded in the experience of navigating an AR map, where the player can locate and hide from cameras with the help of Yo, Marsh, and Cooper. There will be 3 play modes with different goals. The first one is ninja mode with the goal of avoiding all the cameras. The second is detective mode, aiming to locate and mark cameras. The third is undercover headquarters for the status check and prop purchase all at once. The player can earn credits in the first 2 modes and trade them in the third one. The flow of the game is quite simple. When a player wants to navigate somewhere and to have some fun during the walk, they can use the game as a guide. With avoiding cameras being the ultimate goal, the player will spend most of the time in the ninja mode. During the avoiding process, the player can also access the detective mode whenever they spot a new camera. When reaching their destination, there will be a checkout page with access for the overall statistics in headquarters mode. I will now break down the detailed interactions. In the ninja mode, the player will avoid all the cameras along the way with Yo, the enthusiastic ninja trainee. When approaching a certain camera, Yo will jump out of the screen to get visual and audio alerts for nearby civilians.
You are hiding to a camera. Be careful.
He will also provide hiding techniques like carefully peeking for hidden cameras, walking backward, using disguising actions like bending to hide your face, taking detours, etc.
Crowded cameras ahead of you. Turn right to avoid them.
The detective mode is led by Marsh, an experienced detective. She will guide the player through the process of locating cameras. The player will have to hold his or her phone toward the camera for 2 to 3 seconds for Marsh to recognize it.
New camera. Hold your phone to it and let me see.
If a camera is successfully detected, there will be a ping on the 2D map.
Brilliant! You just found 2 new cameras.
This design is aimed for expanding the influence of the game from individual practice to a larger community contribution. By dragging the panel of Undercover Headquarters up, the player can pay a short visit to Cooper, the special agent, as well as the leader of Undercover. In this room, the player can check their performance in the statistics board or use the credits they've earned through the detective mode to purchase or upgrade props. I've done many rounds of playtests through the design process. One of them is to assist tester hiding from all the cameras on a designated route. His action along the way inspired the kinds of guidance that I've given players. I also spent much time developing the background story and revealing it with related UI elements. And as for the flow, I developed the play modes through many iterations to concentrate on the idea of raising awareness. That concludes my presentation. Hope you can have fun playing Undercover.
Thanks, Sherry. Next up, we have Jerry.
Hi everyone, I'm Jerry Tan, presenting my thesis project, EchoLearn. Echolocation is a perceptual method used by a subset of blind individuals for their improved independence and mobility. By emitting mouth clicks and interpreting the resulting sound reflections, a blind individual can perceive their surroundings.
There's an object about 20 feet away here, and another one about, 50 feet away.
The echolocation training starts from trusting hearing by recognizing everyday objects.
Tell me which side. My right. Okay.
And then navigating environments through echolocation. Although echolocation is promising, its adoption is challenged by beginners' untrained hearings and the fact that there are few qualified instructors in the world. Therefore, I collaborated with Thomas Tadgel, a Belgian-based echolocation instructor, proposing EchoLearn as an educational solution, leveraging technology intervention. Introducing EchoLearn. EchoLearn is a mobile VR simulator, activating the blind and visually impaired community's equal access to echolocation distance education. Strategically, EchoLearn simulates adjustable sound reflection in VR and enables self-practicing and remote training of echolocation. Instead of replacing the whole training process, EchoLearn is only meant to be an onboarding approach. It helps echolocation learners initiate their learning process earlier by providing two kinds of exercises. On the other hand, it helps instructors teach more efficiently, as they can instruct students who have already acquired basic comprehension, but not start teaching from scratch. One of the biggest challenges of this project is to reproduce the echolocation experience in the real world. In response to that, I collected a mouth click audio clip from Thomas and generated its sound reflection from virtual 3D structures using the STEAM Audio SDK in Unity. Because EchoLearn is an acoustic VR experience for sightless users, I leveraged the functionality of motion sensing headphones rather than using a visual VR headset. This allows users to adjust their viewing direction based on their head positions, helping them to understand which direction they're facing. Meanwhile, on their smartphones, they can perform voice-over gestures to access the UI functionalities and move around in VR using a virtual joystick. Right, so how to use EchoLearn? From the homepage, users can access the basic exercise and or a series of advanced exercises. The basic exercise reproduces the 5 commonly used echolocation training practices in a VR wide cube setting. It helps students associate sound reflection with physical attributes such as direction, distance, size, and texture. In a series of multi-choice quizzes, users can double tap to emit virtual mouth clicks and interpret their resulting sound reflections from a set of daily objects. When users show initial comprehension of echolocation, they can move forward to the advanced exercises, each of which presents a lifelike VR scenario. Here, users can experience navigating through a space where they can identify everyday objects in their ordinary settings. There are 2 control modes. In the navigational mode, users can freely explore the VR scenes. In the screen reader mode, users can browse through objects they are facing to confirm what they heard.
Indoor plant, 12 o'clock, 18 foot. Piano chair, 12 o'clock, 9 foot away. 5 o'clock, sofa, 3 o'clock, 8, sofa, 1 o'clock.
EchoLearn incorporates an auditory navigation system as a supplement for echolocation. With 3 kinds of auditory feedback, users may also determine how far they go, which direction they collide with obstacles, and where they are in the scene through stationary sound sources.
Whose skill did make, but scarcely late his chisel down.
As help is needed, users can access instructors' pre-recorded instructions via the slide down panel. They can also customize the 5 parameters of sound reflection, matching their hearing capabilities via the slide up panel. The playtesting video will further explain.
Education. Basic exercise. Are you facing any object? Yes. Correct. Chair, 12 o'clock, 5 foot away. Advanced exercise, 1 home.
Maybe I can start moving this way. Oops, I hit something again. So probably it's open on the left and I'm very close to something on the right.
Loudspeaker right, 12 o'clock, 11 foot away. TV table, 1 o'clock, 9 foot away.
Thank you for listening. Special thanks to my parents who are also here today for their permanent support. And also thank you for everyone who supported me during my thesis process. I nailed it, yes.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Now we have the last presenter from this group, Sharm.
My name is Sharm. I'm studying augmented reality and blockchain because I'm interested in how AR can be utilized as a learning tool to understand complex systems like blockchain. My target audience is non-specialists, general population who are also curious about this technology. However, for BitCharm, I designed for 13 years old and above audience in mind. Not exactly for child education, but it needs to be simple enough so they and the general mass are able to understand it. Introducing BitCharm, an augmented reality application to bring a playful experience to understand blockchain. Let's take a look inside this BitCharm application. As of April 14, 2021, there are 11 levels to understand blockchain. There will be additional updates and revisions in the future. I designed, modeled, and developed all levels and their mechanics. We're going to jump in at level 6 of BitCharm, which introduces to a few different subjects within blockchain. Up until the 6th level, the player will have progressed through 5 other levels, such as Introduction to BitCharm, Blockchain, Public and Private Keys, Transactions, and Nodes. Now, in the 6th level, the player will come across, first, the memory pool. Second and third are the candidate block and block header. Fourth is hashing. And fifth, we're going to wrap up with miners. All of this information can be overwhelming when the user has to read and understand these different components and how they work. However, through augmented reality, we're able to separate each component, visualize, and interact one by one in a physical environment that the user is familiar with. It seems our user is comfortable outdoors at a soccer field, so let's jump in. After observing the new level, the user is instructed to tap the memory pool. After tapping the interactive artifact, animations of transactions float above to form a candidate block, which prompts the second module. Tap the candidate block to find out about the block header. The block header appears after the initiation, informing the user about its role in the candidate block, with the following question: how does one get the block header? After tapping, the mathematical function SHA-256 appears, along with an explanation and a visual simulation. This is to better help understand what happens to transactions when it goes through the mathematical function. By tapping this module, the user is able to see that transactions go through the SHA-256 function and spit out the numerical values on the other side. To conclude this section, all of this work is done by a miner, portrayed as a monkey. In the next few levels, the user goes deeper and dissects more mechanics of mining, along with how part of this complex technology is also impacting the environment. Guided by curiosity in visualization, art, and technology, I graduated with a degree in communication design and began to explore how can we communicate theories and information with current technological tools as medium. During my youthful days, I enjoyed trading cards, playing video games, and getting lost outdoors with friends. It was a visceral feeling exchanging toys, cards, games with each other, and trying to figure out what else can we do with these physical assets we picked up along the way. Much of these attributes are still the same, even after 20 years, but technology has evolved. Transactions between tangible and intangible assets are now taking place in the digital realm, such as buying, selling, trading, are happening in the virtual environment. The new generations are going to be more tech literate. However, I believe it's just as important to educate the non-specialist and the general masses on the complex technologies they will endure. My user test number 5 had heard of Bitcoin, but not blockchain. Her perception of Bitcoin was that it's dark web money. After playtesting BitCharm, these are some of the following comments she made. The user tester started to realize it was much more than just money. My project did have some success, but also failures. And by failures, I mean I was not able to educate the entire mechanics of blockchain to her at that given time, because it is a complex system. So augmented reality and BitCharm is just a continuation of these kinds of tangible interfaces that operate in the spaces between the physical and digital realm. As time goes by, polymerization of technologies are intersecting seamlessly between reality and virtual spaces. Some parts of the world will embrace the change, adopt it, while other parts may deal with its consequences or will never see the adoption due to the lack of education. Technology isn't perfect, but it is up to us how to utilize it properly. Deconstructing complex technologies and have it be accessible should be used to uplift local communities and societies, not to build new empires. I'd like to go beyond blockchain and cover emerging complex technologies as well, following my curiosity. So you may ask, is this the digital frontier to reshape the human condition? No, this is just bits of me. Sure.
Thank you, Sherry, Jerry, and Sharm. Now we will invite Juan again to ask each of you one question in regards to your work. Juan?
Thank you for joining your projects. I'm gonna begin with Sherry. Yeah, Sherry, I really appreciate your project, and I find it like very relevant Especially like I think I can relate like to what can I say, like this context of non-awareness of surveillance, or I mean the idea of privacy itself in many territories, and I can speak from the ones in the tropics, is just different. Like it's very complex or to talk about privacy when you grew up in a place where your mom comes into your room without knocking, you share rooms with siblings and you have big families, and like privacy, it's just different. And I think it will benefit from complexifying this discourse in general, like if it's privacy or not. So what I think it's and I value from your project is like how it can make more visible these surveillance systems that at the moment are present in China, but are also getting exported elsewhere to Ecuador, for instance, and like there's gonna be there in many places. And the gamifying aspect of it, I find it also an interesting approach, like don't step in lava. Or I wonder like also what new choreographies or dynamics or derives one could develop by navigating the like cities without or avoiding the most amount of cameras. But anyways, like that was like a big comment. But what I wonder is what could come next, or what could be a sequel for this app? Like one thing is raising awareness and making counter surveillance, like by counting new cameras that pop up like as flowers. But what could come? How? Like I wonder how there could be critical approaches to this, or these situations can be also complexified. I said, like, I think, or I don't know, I personally think it's like, it's very much about like what is done with this data and like these extractivist systems we live in. So yeah, like, do you imagine like a sequel for this app or an extension for this, or I don't know what comes next? I think it's a big question,
I was
but
just
I would like to hear your
just
opinion.
thinking about the extension of this app. So my starting point is like to say to people show them the fact of they are living in the environment full of mass surveillance. And I think the next step I want to educate people is that to show them they can use their civil rights to reclaim the usage of their data. Like when using the AR app equipment to scanning all the security cameras, they could see how their data will be, where their data will be uploaded and where it will be used and how it is being preserved in the database. And those kind of things is what we want to know about the usage of the data. And I think it's important for us to control the expansion of the security cameras. And what I also imagine for the next phase is like, I think that the fundamental goal of my current game is like to gain an equal position in the conversation. Like I think the security cameras is surveilling us without notifying us. But when we know they are watching us and we know the usage of our data, we can develop some, I think the intervention must be formed by the legal system. So I think in the next phase, I want people to build a larger community to construct a more like systematical regulations and laws for the application of security cameras and to control the expansion of them. And that's pretty much that I want to say. And if you have visited my website, there's a final code from Cooper saying that maybe we can find some solutions for coexistence. And I think that stage is what I want to reach as the final goal.
I think thanks first. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. Surveillance cameras are interesting in itself, like the verticality already expressed in them, like also with observation decks or geosatellite imagery drones. Like this verticality is not only like physical, but like you can like see or feel and how yeah, you're basically a target. But yeah, I'm looking forward to know some more.
Okay, thank you.
In your website, you said?
Yeah, sure. Check
cool.
it out.
Yeah, I'll check it out. So now I go with so after Jerry, and so yeah, Jerry, thanks so much for sharing that. And I see also like you got like support from Thomas that I got to connect a little bit also the last months. Yeah, I imagine like with this project, like many scenarios, like I actually think it's kind of interesting, like how, or it made me think like how, like so for visually impaired people, like the visual systems we're used to might be like difficult to access without alt text and like other voice assistants. I find interesting to bring this spatiality to these digital systems, and that is like this way of navigation is something that I suspect, or I suppose some or many visually impaired people are already used to, and if we are heading to more VR, AR systems and interactions and interfaces, that could be actually like an interesting entry point for visually impaired people. So we are like kind of in a more same level, or other rules of the games, and that's actually what then like what I would like you to ask, like considering like that this is a new playground in a way, and we could redefine the rules of the game. To which extent could this project delink from the visual codes and systems we are more familiar with, or we live in, or we are forced to live? Meaning, and I will tell, maybe I will bring like a small case example. Maybe you know about Neil Harrison, like this UK cyborg citizen that has a camera implanted in his head, and he's colorblind, and the camera that he has in his head, and also with some like bone conduction speakers, are translating colors into sound, are sonifying image colors in this case, and thus, like in a kind of synesthetic approach, developing a new language. And I wonder what new languages we could develop furthermore of this. I don't know how to describe the sounds. Knock sounds, I don't know, but maybe
click.
Yeah, maybe they could. Maybe we could feel textures, no, with them, and not only distance, and or colors. Like, I mean, yeah, the scenarios were like gray. I mean, is that maybe it's not relevant for visually impaired, or maybe it is. I don't know, but yeah, I wonder like how your project could develop these new languages, or if it's something that you is in mind, or yeah.
I got you. Thank you for the questions. I'm glad that you know Thomas, who is also here today. So I want to thank Thomas here for his knowledge and passion and helping me for this project. So as for the accessibility concern, actually, I thought about that. From hardware aspect, I use headphone and mobile smartphone as the media. These two media are pretty common for blind and visually impaired individuals, so they're pretty comfortable using it. So from the navigation software standpoint, my hand gestures and UI navigation is based on the voiceover, the iOS voiceover system. So they are pretty comfortable controlling it. And also I did a blind test with two blindfolded individuals, and the result shows that they are able to navigate the apps and access every UI functionalities. There's no problem in this aspect. So you mentioned the VR auditory feedback is very promising for the game industry. Actually, they have already done some similar thing, and that is my inspiration of incorporating the footstep feedback and some fixed position sound source for people to understand where they are in the scene. You can find it in some game like Craft King and something else. So you did mention that there is some assistive technology can transform visual information into sound information for colorblind people. Actually, that is something we try to attack in our project, because most of this assisted technology actually trying to force everyone to see through vision on the world. However, Thomas and I try to encourage people that everyone should see with the sense that work for them. So our act actually is trying to help them polish their hearing and establish their understanding towards the world through hearing. So actually, the ultimate goal is that accessibility actually open up a window for you to delve deep into multisensory design. So ultimately, the digital world will be just an equal space where like every content can be displayed in multimodal media, like hearing, vision, smell, and taste. So at the end of the day, probably every people can mingle in the digital world and use different senses to communicate with each other and to participate in different kind of entertaining experience.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So I guess we could come to you, Sean, and with the bit charm, I generally find interesting or relevant to find like ways to sensibilize to a complex system such as the blockchain. So I find interesting like to to look at something tangible or semi-tangible, like in the form of a augmented reality. And why did you choose a monkey? But no, that's not my question. But but it is a little bit. But that maybe what I wonder is like, yeah, I think the blockchain in general, like, has maybe not the blockchain, but some aspects of the blockchain have like a lot of hype at the moment, and especially with this idea of producing a scarcity that I find a bit strange, how we're translating this produce a scarcity from the physical world in abundant places like the global south or the tropics, and now to the digital realm. But anyways, that's another topic. Like, but why wonder like how what critical understandings can one have, like through the bit charm, or like what's actually what the bit charm is telling, if it's more about the hype or only the functioning, but it also like it's kind of gamified, because the blockchain is of course more than the cryptocurrencies and now NFTs and all that. And so I wonder, like, it's very strange to say it like this, but how one can complexify this already complex idea of the blockchain.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. That's a great question. So, well, I went into this project without having much of a tech background. So I was sort of like the audience member that I was going to teach myself as I go through this project. And going to this, right, the critical lessons that BitCharm, impart on users, is that I think it's trying to unravel the noise. There's a lot of noise around this, political, non-political, and that's where I wanted to kind of bring this BitCharm into, to showcase the blockchain mechanics itself, the understanding the bare bones, because as we're in this process, or as years go by, there's blockchain 4.0, or right now we're going into like Ethereum blockchain, Polkadot blockchain, Tezos, Monero, but this one was focused on the Bitcoin protocol, which is the proof of work. So I kind of wanted to start with the original Bitcoin protocol, which is like the foundation. And then from there, my future goal was to expand it and go into other blockchains as well. Now, going into the critical learning, or the lessons part, I wanted to go into the main core components: mining, memory pool, these terminologies I kept hearing on, because I think once we start to understand the terminologies, we will start to understand how it all makes sense, how it kind of completes. But it's hard to understand what these terminologies are when we can't visualize it, when we can't see it. It's so, it's intangible. So we're kind of just hearing so many of these words being used when someone talks about blockchain, and it's hard to visualize all the different vocabularies. And that is why I wanted to create like a base function for blockchain or BitCharm, and kind of give visual guidance to the key terminologies of blockchain. So when people say, oh, miners, oh, miner monkey, oh yeah, I played that in BitCharm. Yeah, I hate them. It's giving a more of a character to like each different component into mechanics. One thing I wanted to kind of go into, which I wasn't able to do it, I wanted to kind of start creating like a story aspect to it. That was part of like, inspired by Miyazaki's films, and like the way he goes into his film production with giving a story and arc with each of the characters. That's where I want to kind of go into with blockchain, giving a core understanding of each component, so people will have a better realization of why some parts work the way it is and what they are, rather than just like, oh, you send it to a SHA 256. Like, what's that? Oh, I remember it was like the thing that transforms things into, and it spits out a numerical value. That was through AR. So it's sort of like visualizing, a guiding visualization of the mechanics of blockchain, if that answers your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks. It makes me feel, it makes me think of like some kind of AR schemorphism, like finding like these metaphors for the untangible. And what was it again? The monkey.
Yeah, monkey. You know, it's just monkey business. It's schematic. It's there are many layers to the monkey, so I just kind of kept it simple with just a monkey.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wonder, like, just like if this is something that needs to be taught at all or explained, but maybe I don't know, like, but maybe I don't know. That's too much hype at the moment. So I, yeah. Thank you all. Was very stimulating. I hope I could give some input to some extent, like I don't know, with my positions and perspectives and opinions. And feel free to get in touch, and maybe we can keep the conversation going.
Great. Thank you so much, Juan, for those questions and the students for your responses. This marks the end of our first session. Juan, thank you so much for taking the time to be at our thesis showcase. Please feel free to stick around and watch the rest of the show. We will now be taking a quick 2-minute break since we're a little over time, and I'll see you all back here at 7:23. Welcome back, everyone. Before we start the second session, if you're just joining us, please review the housekeeping notes in the chat. We are switching the format up in this session. We will start with Group 3 student presentations and end with a gallery tour with Group 4 students. Each group will be followed by a Q&A with our guest artist, Anthony Dunn of Dunn & Raby. Anthony Dunn is a university professor of design and social inquiry and a fellow of the Graduate Institute for Design Ethnography and Social Thought at the New School. Anthony Dunn uses design as a medium to stimulate discussion and debate amongst designers, industry, and public about the social, cultural, and ethical implications of existing and emerging technologies. His work has been exhibited at MoMA, NYC, and the Pompidou Center, Paris, and the Design Museum in London, as well as several private collections. In 2015, Anthony Dunn received the inaugural MIT Media Lab Award and was nominated for the Prince Philip Designers Prize in 2016. Anthony, we're so thrilled to have you join us today.
Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to seeing the projects.
Amazing. Now let's welcome the first group of students for this final session. These artists experiment with different mediums for now creative expressions, art, and experiences. I now welcome our first student presenter, Valerie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Valerie. Welcome to my project, Tamed. This project is an experience mainly created for myself to understand my range of emotions as change occurs, as well as to search for new ways to subconsciously heal my feelings before I notice them. So the answer here is me. I am creating something to tend myself. And to explain a little bit clearer, I see my project as a fashion therapy system uses machine learning to analyze one's emotions through personal diary entries and outfit selection. The machine was used to observe my outfit choices I made unconsciously in order to tame and undersist consciousness to calm the feelings that I would be facing at the start of each day. And the video would show how the system works. So the motivation that inspired me to start this project was the time it took answering the question, how are you? And the default answer is usually good for like everyone. Then how do I even know at the moment whether I'm feeling good or not? How do I assess my own emotions? And people need certain interactions with themselves to see the evidence of their own feelings. And why is it so important to me is that at the age of 25 right now, I believe that as a human being, we have the ability to balance our own emotions. Humans can heal themselves as long as they noticed. The issue that I'm facing is I don't even know that I was in a toxic relationship with myself. Being sad or other negative feelings is not always a bad thing. It is even another way to distinguish my other emotions. So if I could understand my emotions sooner, could I find a way to embrace and heal myself? And then go a little bit deeper to the research. The theory of constructed emotion is a theory that's stating our emotions are constructed by our past experiences. We first document the situation inside of our brain, and then the emotion appear from the past experience we have been through. And here comes the question that I've been asked to myself: how do I assess my own past experiences? Then that leads me to the key research of this project. Walter Benjamin described reading one's bookshelf as reading one's life. Not only the action of buying, collecting, discarding books, a representation of one's behavior, but also the content of their collections. In my understanding, this analogy can also apply to our wardrobe. Consider if the action of buying a book could be say as owning a knowledge, then the action of buying a dress could be described as climbing a style. People unconsciously pick their outfit to get ready for the day to be themselves in public. And so that can my wardrobe display all of my characteristics? And if I could analyze the logistic behind why I choose specific outfits, could it be a way to somehow deliver my overall emotions? And since I have a strong attachment and connections to words and phrases, in turn, this might allow me to heal by reminiscing and learning about my past situation from my memories. But like there's still no scientific proof that my final quotes can heal me, but it did provide me with a guideline to better understanding my moods. And I want to quickly explain a little bit about the technical part of this project. I use 4 Python libraries to do the machine learning work, which are OpenCV, UPAR, TuneNet, Text to Emotion, and Natural Language Toolkit. And the documentation could be found on my website. And thank you for listening to the alternative ways for me to understanding myself. And I want to thank my thesis advisors. Bear with me in every meeting, seeing me questioning myself and give the best they can provide. And also want to thank all the DT community. Sincerely grateful to have you in my journey. And finally, I want to thank the support from my family and friends all around the world. And now I'll give the floor back to Sylvia.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Next up, we have Jill.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Tonight, I'm going to talk about my thesis project, which is called Nuances. And it's a collection of experiments that explore how human and computation can collaborate together and augment the craft of making pottery. In going from hand building clay vessels on a wheel to ceramic 3D printing, we kind of jumped the gun. And I'm experimenting and making techniques that reside somewhere in between the two ends of the spectrum. The motivations for my project were clear. I love making things, but digital fabrication methods provided me with this very linear and constraining workflow wherein I started sketching things out and then building these perfect looking things on the CAD software, and then finally just asking my 3D printer to build them out for me. Like there was no real interaction and tangible feedback, and I could not alter my forms while it was being made. And simultaneously, I was also super inspired by the traditional terracotta pottery industries back in my home country in India, where these communities and artisans practice the art as a vocation and not just as their hobby and art form. And a lot of my experiments that are a part of this collection have been influenced and directly inspired by these communities. Without further ado, I just want to briefly lay down the two guiding questions that I had for the experiments that I made. So the first one was, how can the unidirectional and constraining workflows of digital fabrication processes be reimagined? And what can jolt the traditional practices of making from their perfect but obsolete bliss? Coming to experiment one, I was trying to use cues from the self and the environment and embed them into the fabric of a clay pot. So like, how could I translate something of mine and some sense or something from the environment into the clayware that I'm crafting? And for this experiment, I chose to embed sound into the pots that I was making. I started embedding conversations and hummings and singing that I had with my partner and I was having with myself into these 3D printed pots. But then again, this experiment was extremely crucial in making me realize where I was going with this. Like, this was still linear. I was not actually making things, which led me to my second experiment. And with this one, I was trying to humanize the ceramic 3D printer in a way that it can't function without my hands, or it can't function properly without my hands, and you can't make sense of what comes out of it. So I built this small extension to an existing pottery wheel. So basically it could be hooked up to any wheel per se. And it was a ceramic paste extruder, which I hacked up with the resources I had at that moment. And the biggest task and the hurdle I faced was like getting the consistency of the clay right so that it would extrude out of that mechanical component. But once I'd figured it out, I'd started my experiments. So basically the rotating wheel of the pottery wheel formed the X and Y axis, and the Z axis was just this extruder. And I started extruding things and trying to use my hands to give them some form, some shape. And I was failing miserably. Like, I tried and tried, and there are a lot of trial and errors. Then I tried this other version that I wanted to see if like a hand-thrown pot could be merged with a 3D printed one and bring about an aesthetic which is not completely mechanical and like perfect looking. And once again, it was not perfect. I realized that the Z-axis needs to move. The machine needs to be moving up and down. And while I could not carry that out in the machine perfectly, but this was the idealized version of the pot that I hoped to achieve, where the coiling would be there on the hand-thrown pots and bring something which is collaborative. And last but not the least, this is the third experiment that I did. And this was inspired from the fact that a lot of vocational potters back in India, they're facing challenges because their crafts are the same and people no longer want it. There's an altered sense of aesthetics, and people are looking forward to new things like crazy glazes and just in terms of studio pottery and luxury handmade crafted wares, which these people don't have the technology to do so. So I wanted to see how and if I could break muscle memory of experienced potters and allow them for like altered and nuanced aesthetics by purely bringing in a computational chance. And I did this by, I did this by hooking myself up with transelectros muscle stimulation, and I hacked the device so that it would shock me at random points given a during time, say like a process of 15 minutes when I'm making a pot. And it would just shock me and make my fingers twitch. Now, clay is really sensitive to pressure, and as soon as my fingers started twitching, it made these wild-looking figures on the wheel, which were completely different than what a normal-looking and a good hand-thrown pot would look like. And since I could not control the control when the machine is gonna shock me so that my fingers would move, it was really exciting and shocking for me to see the results that were coming out, and just to like get a feel of something which is so humanized and so analog like clay on my hand, at the same time having something which is like super computational and electronic, like a shocking machine. And these are some of the results that came out of this experiment. And I love how they started forming a language of sorts. And it was like these disformed pots that are coming together to become a collection. And this is what I had after carrying out this experiment. And I hope to add more experiments onto this collection and see where this goes and how I can ideate more on how man and machine can make together and not alone. And this is it. Thank you to all my thesis advisors, and a heartfelt gratitude to my family and friends who never stopped having my back. And I'm gonna pass the mic over to Sophie.
Thank you so much, Jill. Next up, we have Hongxi.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Hongxi Chen, and this is my thesis project. Exhalation is a mixed reality experience that focuses on dematerialization, activity in both physical and virtual space and systems. Through this project, I wanted to explore new potential for both storytelling and user experience. The goal of this project is to turn offline physical space into a virtual playground. So at the early stage of my project, I was very interested in offline spaces like brand space, exhibition space, and retail space, as well as some of the space from immersive industry. However, during the research, I found that offline spaces are facing a significant competition from online activities. Now, when people are going to offline spaces, they expect more. It makes me really wonder, what's the advantages of offline spaces in the future? Well, the immersive industry give a possible answer. Traditional theater has been through this amazing evolutionary process that the experience used to be the audience sitting in their seats and viewing the play from a God's perspective. Now, narratives are transformed into story worlds, which encourage the people to explore freely on their own. Some of the examples are like Zero Space, Sleep No More, and Shio. However, immersive experiences also facing their own challenges of scaling and growth, sustainability, and expensive resources due to heavy reliance, massive scene settings. Therefore, I wanted to try and eliminate the physical constraint through dematerialization and crafting a story world through mixed reality. From my understanding, space is similar to a container. It itself holds the flow of people. The elements and characteristics in the physical space will become the tools that people use to generate their own stories. Therefore, I wanted to explore the possibility of space plus story content. For my thesis experience location, I chose the common area in my apartment buildings, and here is what it looks like, and maybe a more clear view from the floor plan. And for this project, I'm using the first section of it, which is the place that I circled it out. And by zooming into it and digging into interior design, I was able to draw out the function areas, find out the existing user routes, and figure out where all the focus points and best viewing perspective are. Then I go on to the next phrase, which is the narrative. On the narrative side, I choose one of my favorite author, Ted Chiang's, and his science fiction book called Exhalation. This is a story depicted in a robot world centered around the topic of energy crisis, memories, and self-cognitions. The original text-based narrative is designed to be experienced in a linear way. However, the story that it creates has the potential to be expanded into a non-linear storytelling methods, which have more variations and interesting possibilities for the audience to explore. So from the original narrative, I extracted out the story setting, characters, as well as the key plots, and I did some recreation on top of it and designed a set of game objects. Then I consider each element from the game perspective to conclude the goal, game objects, rules, and game space for this experience. And here I have a diagram to show you the spectrum of interactivities for different game objects. Higher levels of interactivities can make the audience to spend more time to play around with. Finally, by putting everything together, I have this experience. And here I will show you a trailer of what the experience might look like.
Argon is the source of our lives.
The high-pressure gas maintains the movement, thinking, and memory of our mechanical bodies. When it's gone, we are gone. We left the secrets of our bodies in these teaching appliances, and we left them for you. Explorers, we hope you can bring our civilization back to life. We are counting on you.
So here is the shorter version. So if you are interested in the narrative, I have a longer version on my Parsons Thesis show website. So for the future development, I actually have two parts. So first, for this project, I wanted to do more experiments with this content and arrange it into different physical space. And in addition, I wanted to see if other content themes can fit into this particular space. And the second part is something after graduation, as I found QuoGen Studio in my junior year, and we did a lot of experience in the field of AR. Now we have a group of awesome people from DT, as well as people outside of the school to work and create experience with us. In the past, we turned a DT BFA's first year event into a scavenger hunt game with AR. And last month, we even collaborated with TEDx Chengdu to transform a kids' educational conferences into a journey for the audience to record their childhood memories with imaginary monster friends in AR. Next, we'll be working with children's museums in China and turn the museum space into a theme playground. So we will keep exploring the boundaries of storytelling and mixed reality, creating engaging and meaningful experience for a larger group of audience. Finally, I wanted to close up with a quote from Ricky. We're now entering into an era in a world of world's creation where you can enter and you are free to look whatever you please. And we will sustain you and keep you inside of a story because it surrounds you. Thank you.
Thanks, Hongxi. Now we have the last presenter from this group, Sharon.
Hi everyone, this is Sharon Jiachen. My thesis project name is The Melting Empty Space, the Migratory Light. When I came to DT, I talked with Professor Travis. He told me his experience with his camera, which is he never put film in his camera. He just sees through the world through his viewfinder. I feel that is very interesting. I think sometimes we probably don't need to take the photos. We just need to experience our world by a patient heart. In this project, I want to use my photos to bring the humanities back in this technology space. And I want to let my audience find the small, tiny moment, but with very surprise in their life. And I think the value for this project was made for this May because we already expand 1 year in the pandemic, and sometimes we feel very depressed. But I want to through my experience with those gone and abandoned empty space, bring the life to that space and make you feel still positive through viewing my photos. At the beginning of my research, I was wondering why we have a lot of wasting photos, even though we took the photos, but we actually didn't document the memory in our mind. So I did some research on that because of the media was too fast. And then especially during the pandemic, when we in home, we don't have other activities, we don't have other chance to access the real world. We only can use the social media to access the world. but that's not our real life. So in order to make people or to find a way to spend more time with their life when they're taking photos, at the beginning, I tried to bring the analog film technique into the photo taking part. So I designed some wet photo taking, and then also want to bring the taking photo experience became more fun. So I designed the game into the photo taking. I also create some iteration of how can my viewers view those photos or through an analog developed process. However, and I also use the way how photos telling the story by the points, but not by the linear, create exhibition of the photos per pandemic. However, I realized that actually it's not about the technique, it's about our attitude, because we didn't pay attention in our recent life. So in this result, I shifting my research into how can we slow down our speed when we engage with real life. So I designed a pinhole camera filter on Instagram, which is letting you taking the focus on the one thing holding for a long time and then letting the film gone. And talk about my subject matter, which is I choose the empty space. That's what I believe. The empty space is sometimes feels like our memory. That's my metaphor of our memory, because those empty space exist over there. However, we cannot come back to that space again because they are being abandoned. But in the photo and the video and the film field, we can bring those magic happens. We can bring the photos alive. We can bring the life back. So I start to use the P5.js to make the test on the photos. So in my methodology, the first thing is I use the metaphor to create the content, and then I was asking myself how photos respond back to the audience instead of we just viewing the photo. In this, I had some demo to interact with those photos by using the postnet, because postnet is not using the mouse to click on the photo, actually has more body haptic with the photo. That's what I think can bring the intimacy with the photo we took. And then finally, I designed the website. And here is the website. In this website, I put 10 photos of during the pandemic time I took. And then each photos I have different interaction. The first one is by the sound. If you talk to the photo can respond to you, can bring back the memory you had over there.
记忆就像河水，如果我不再去看它，它就不会再流淌。Only look at the memory, memory runs like a river.
And the second one was using the hand to touch the photo, but in specific area, you can never get into that type of memory, then the audio won't play. In this one, which is by the eye tracking, I showed in demo before. Sometimes when we get closer, we can see the memory more clear, but sometimes when we get closer, we cannot see the memory clear. That's the one when we get more and more closer, but the photo will become more and more blurry. And this is the one I made a metaphor of it. Memory, when we see the memory, we always see through the full rest glass. We can't really see it clear. In the last one, I bring the light into my photos because I think we as humans, we are the light in the busy city. So that's my website. And then in the future, I want to create an exhibition in the 3D dimensional space. That's the one of the for my put. I use the concrete to put the photos of a restaurant in because I think concrete can last more time. And before we talk about the future discussion on the future, I manifest that encourage everyone, please take some time to spend with our current and real life. When we talk about the design and technology, we always think about the future. Is there an innovation design for present? I say that when the photography technique were innovated, cameras as our eyes did this. It documented the present and bring the past to the future. However, we cannot bring the camera with us every day at every moment, but we can slow down the speed of touch, the feeling of our real life. We already spend a lot of time the fast speed media, especially during the past year. Right now, when we step back into our world again in this May, I manifest that encourage to find the beautiful small tiny moments in our ordinary life. We call it May because everything is possible. Special thanks to the friends and my family to help me during the whole year, especially my thesis professor, Richard Tate, Anna, and John Sharp, Barbara, and all my DT friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie, Jill, Hongxi, and Sharon. Now we will invite Anthony to ask each of you one question in regards to your work. Anthony, take it away.
Thank you. What a wonderful collection of projects. Very, very beautiful, very thought-provoking. So many questions. I'm going to have to work hard to try and choose one for each. I guess I'll start with you, Valerie. Beautifully presented project, and I think a really interesting combination of, I guess, very current and complex technologies with a kind of profoundly human issue. I think things that normally live in very separate worlds were brought together beautifully in this project. I think the question I had was that often when we introduce these kinds of augmentations to our body or to our emotional world or our psychological world, we strengthen and enhance ourselves, but we also sometimes lose something. And I'm wondering if when you were designing this project and if it was taken up and many, many people used it, how do you think people might change? Are there qualities that we might no longer have that might become precious in different ways?
Like currently, I was only thinking of myself, but I think like different people have different attachment to different objects. So for me, it's my clothing, but for other people, like Sharon just present, I think it's photo. And I think like for like bring to like the society, I think I cannot change other people's thoughts, and I don't want to. But what I can do is make myself a better version of me, so that can give a reference to other people to grow, and then maybe something will miss in their journey, but they're always an option, or like there's always a way to take it back, and then you can look back to your past experience with your own system, or you can decide to leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jill, hello.
Hi, Tony.
It's an absolutely lovely project. I think I particularly love the sound one. where the ambience sort of creeps into the formation of the object in different ways. I think it's very interesting, the challenge of trying to continue to work with objects in the current world when we're bombarded with so many other media, and objects themselves are becoming more and more challenging to realize in this world. And I guess I was really impressed with the way you've sort of found a way of squeezing a little bit more meaning into the material world by subtly introducing these technological dimensions. And I guess I was curious, you talked about kind of next, that the project could go in a number of directions. And I was wondering if you could say a little bit more. For example, is the two directions that came to my mind were you continue doing these kinds of experiments related to pottery, or are there other objects in the world that this kind of thinking could be brought to that might kind of lead to literally a very different world?
Yeah, that's a very relevant question, Tony. Thank you for asking that. And in fact, like even when I was writing my thesis paper, the end section is all about the future ideas that I might have. And one of them is, in fact, expanding this practice of like finding collaborative ways of making, not just in pottery, but also looking at other types of handicrafts and traditional methods of making that have been ongoing since ages and are now being revolutionized by technology. And one example I could give is like carving, just wood carving or stone carving or marble carving. And now we have these CNC machines who do it all for us, and we don't really have to worry about that. So I want to look at other practices and other crafting methods which have this potential to be nuanced, and there's a way for me to find out how technology can be subtly imbued in there, but then the agency of my hands is not completely taken away. So a next step would be, for me, would be to explore what other craft I could next target and look for experiments that I could go in, like put in there, and then also to build a collaborative practice where I can find experts in both the fields and have them play it out with me. Like, even though I did this project, I'm not a master at making pottery, and I would have wished that I could get experienced potters to try out these experiments and also help me develop them further. So that is one major aspect that I want to bring to this project, is having multidisciplinary experts and collaborators, which might help me to figure out these experiments, and then people and practitioners from there on can take it up in their own practice and make something out of it.
Great, thank you very much, Jill.
Thank you, Tony.
Hongxi, I'm a great fan of Ted Chiang as well, so it was fascinating to see you take one of his stories and adapt it or work it into your project. I guess one of the things I was most interested in was the aesthetic, the kind of the visual language you use to represent this world. And I'd love to hear more about some of the thoughts and influences and ideas that led to the sort of look and feel of your project.
Yeah, definitely. So basically for the project, because the story world is depicted in a robot world, and where the author, if you read the book, you know that the author at the end kind of calls out to the whole like universe or even the parallel universe for help to save their civilizations. So basically this is two reasons. Like first, I use like augmented reality, try to open up a portal so people can entering into this robot world with this technology. And on the aesthetic wise, I choose this kind of broken interior style because I want to show this blending of two worlds that is combining together. So in the video, you can see that there's not only the virtual side of it, but you can also see the real space and how the interior looks like in there. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much, Hongxi. And finally, Sharon, another beautiful and thought-provoking project. I guess your project seemed to involve a lot of experiments and discoveries and poetic kind of happy accidents and things like that. And I was kind of very interested maybe in hearing a little bit more about perhaps the most surprising discovery, or the one that kind of had the biggest impact on you in this particular journey that you've taken through all these various experiments.
I think the most impact on me, which is first I realized that in the narrative way, the storytelling telling of photos are not like other material like a film or like the novel have a dramatic archive. Photos narrative the story in the points. That's why I designed the website. Actually didn't use any shortcuts. You need to go back to the main page every time to find a new photo. So you can narrative your story on the photo. The second thing, which is actually I started at the beginning trying to use how photos react to the audience, react to the participate by the analog way, how we design, how we making, how we develop the photo. But later on, I found actually it's not about the technique, is like complicated. It's about during that complicated technique, we spend the time. So that's why I realized it's all about our attitude. Technology didn't making us feel bad about our life. Technology just like bring our life in the fast speed. But however, we can also use technology to slow down our speed in our life. That's my learning from my project.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I guess they're my questions.
Great. Thank you, Anthony, for those questions and feedback, and the students for your responses. The last section of today will be a virtual tour of our gallery.
Sorry to interrupt, Fiona's going to join me now. She's was unable to attend the first half, but she's here now.
Good to know, thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but we can't hear the sound. Of interactive online spaces and narratives. Today, we would like to take you on a guided gallery tour to view Aya's Oasis Immersive Experience, Donneric's Humane Hand, Julie's VR Galaxy, Watching Me, and Sean's sculpture, Invisible Bridge. In front of us, we have artist Aya Nakamura. Oasis is an experience that provides an informative, meditative, and immersive experience about the 6 stages of grief using a 3D game platform as its medium. A mother-like character will guide a player through 6 different environments, each representing the stages of grief introduced by psychiatrist Kubler-Ross. Now we have artist Doneric Peralta. The Humane Hand is a project aiming to highlight our increasingly dependent relationship with technology, our need for convenience and efficiency, and investigate the role we as humans play within. The Humane Hand offers a physical way to experience one of the hand's historical problem-solving methods, finger counting, in partnership with computation. Through a wearable technology glove, the Humane Hand transforms the analog experience into one where the body, mind, and technology work together to calculate. The goal of the Humane Hand is to empower our thinking as humans first and continue it with new technology experiences around us. Now we have artist Julie Zhu. Watching Me is a VR galaxy that builds up a parallel world with several planets. This world contains different emotions of struggling, regret, self-hiding, and abandonment that people don't want to be recognized by others. Lastly, we have artist Shan Zhang. Invisible Bridge is a database physical recreation of a map that indicates all restaurants within 2 blocks around Union Square. By revealing and visualizing 2 scales of distance, New York City distance and real geographical distance, the audience can realize that we are surrounded by so many cultures from all over the world, and also encourage them to explore this complex system of food and immigration culture in the future. Ultimately, it will be built as a wayfinding signage in an abstract sculptural form to assist people to unreveal cultural integration in the area. Thank you all for joining the gallery tour. We now invite Aya, Doneric, Julie, and Sean to join us on stage. We're also so excited to have Fiona Raby join us for this segment to provide feedback and ask each of you one question in regards to your work. Anthony and Fiona.
Okay. It's going to take maybe a couple of minutes to formulate questions. That was a pretty minimal.
That was quick. I've got too
minimal
many
questions.
Yeah.
Shall I go first?
The Oasis one. I'd love to know, because I'd like to know about the landscape that you're moving through and what kinds of things you encounter as you're moving through the space.
So each of the stages represent a stage of grief. So I wanted the users to kind of have a reflective experience by going through these stages.
Yeah, the beautiful space, the space that we saw at the beginning looks really an interesting space. I'm wondering how you designed the different spaces. Are there 6 very different spaces that you designed?
Yes.
Can you describe a few of them?
Sure. So there's a stage called Anger, and that stage has a lot of red and black tones with fire. And there's one of the last stages is called Meaning, where they are above the clouds, and it's very beautiful.
And do you wear a headset, or is it you just how do you actually move through the spaces?
So you would use a PS4 and then just move through the space with that. Yeah.
Looks. I want to have it. I want to try it. It looks amazing. Really beautiful.
Just from reading a little bit about your project, Anaric, I was fascinated by the description of how you combine, as you say, the technology, the actual counting on the fingers, and the sort of psychological thing. I didn't really catch much of a glimpse into that from the video, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about how it works, maybe from an experiential point of view.
Yeah, no problem. So really the intent was to kind of create this way of experiencing a really analog, or I would say even historical and cultural aspect of kind of human technology. So finger counting from a historical perspective, obviously people can do that without any kind of computation or technology. And I kind of ended up on this idea of how to augment a calculator, because it's one of these inventions that really kind of take all the work out of what we have to do and just kind of put it in a different area, whether it's physically, intellectually. So I wanted to, it was an interesting way to kind of combine those, where you have a lot of these kind of manual methods of counting around the world, whether it's, by your index, by the different areas on your hand, and how do you actually kind of add the different values that you would see on a calculator. So you already count from 1 to 10, but what if you can touch from 1 to 10? What if you can multiply, 5 times 3? And so I wanted to create that kind of wearable technology glove as a medium to kind of deliver some of both the touch aspect from someone actually using the actual application or the actual product, but then with the experience of the actual glove itself, you do have kind of visual and haptic feedback. So when you're actually calculating an answer, let's say 1 times 5, you get these vibrations that kind of give you an answer without having to look at a visual screen. So 15, you'd get a 1-5 buzz on your hand. So it's just a different way of kind of experiencing, hey, how do we actually take back some of the work, some of the knowledge, some of the actual human elements of doing these kind of problems away from technology, in respect that, hey, these things have been existing for long before the calculator kind of invented. So how do we actually empower ourselves to empower and remind ourselves that, we've had these things for generations, if not thousands of years.
A really interesting concept. Just one more quick question. Are there other aspects of the body or the kind of gestures and things we do that you've identified for maybe future projects?
Oh yeah. So I hope in the future to kind of create more of a line of these different kind of projects that kind of highlight, things that have already existed or things that humans themselves can kind of complete. But with the hand itself, it's been an interesting journey, because it's a form of communication, it's a form of making, it's a form of just being able to just do so many different things. So the hand, just from that perspective, just with the ability to do so many things, there's just an endless amount of projects. So it's a working project. It's a large working project, but I look forward to kind of continuing it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it does feel like it's going to be a really big project. There's a lot you can do with, you know, with what hand gestures and particularly counting. A really, really great project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie's next, I think.
Julie's next. Oh, the planets. Oh yeah, so maybe tell us a little bit more about each of the planets.
And how, I guess,
the language that you used and how you created them, what kinds of textures and shapes and forms, and how did you get your inspiration to create the planets?
Yeah, sure. So my planets are all working around the people with bulimia. And usually when they start their bulimia behaviors, they are triggered by some physical things or some accidents in their life. So I choose some elements that really easy to trigger them, like mirror. The first planet is starting from the shape of mirror and the brain in the mirror, like they hate the person in the mirror because they don't like themselves when they feel upset. And I use the background to be like the words, the negative comments they receive from their daily life, and kind of show like a moment they are thinking about the body shape. And the bad words they receive feel like I'm not being loved. People love me because only when I am good looking. Then the second planet is about the vent and the toilet flushing. It's like a girl, she was hiding in public restroom to vomit and using the sound of vents and flushing the toilets to cover her sound of vomit. So when she get into the college, she's like, I'm so afraid of these kind of noise, because they will recall me of the days I do that. So it become a long-term trigger for her to record her bad lives. And the third planet is about the first enjoyment of bulimia behaviors, then the regrets they will receive afterwards. So the girl told me, like, I feel like I am crying when I was eating, but I can't stop eating. I know I eat a lot, but I can't stop. I just want to keep that. So like every time when I looking back at the empty package, I feel like I want to be part of the food. So I'm not happy, I'm not sad. I just do the thing I should do, like eating. It's so sad. And, yeah, and the fourth planet is about the family and the girl's relationship. Like she's supposed to be a really good daughter, a really good student in family, in friends. So she hide herself as a bulimic people, and like a lot her parents can't understand her. Like, we take care of you so well. Why you are a person with bulimia? Like, you should keep a good body shape. Let us know we are a good family. Something like that. So this VR planet is also a personal space I made for her to hide herself, hide the real her. And the whole VR space is kind of a parallel space, different from the reality, because all these bad things happen, like you won't see them. They are in their hearts, and they hide themselves to do that. So the whole galaxy is kind of dark, and when you enter it, you will feel like you don't need to understand what happened, but you can feel their depressed, feel their sad, feel their struggling and regret, like these emotions.
Yeah, it's a hugely ambitious project, and I think that it's really interesting to work out how to create empathy. And I think creating an alternative world, another place that reflects all these different emotions is a really, really nice way to do that, to take someone somewhere like a refuge in a virtual space to explore these ideas, in this other world. So I think this is a really tremendous kind of way of using VR. Very interesting. Thank you.
Sean.
Hi.
Hello, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
So that was, again, quite a brief glimpse of your structure. I mean, I've read the description. There's two different systems going on there describing the cultural or geographic distance and the actual distance. I wonder if you could just say a little bit more about how they were represented in the structure that we saw in the sculpture that we saw in the space.
Yeah, so actually, for each tube, you can see there are lots of shapes going on along that tube. So the density of those small pieces actually controlled by two distance. The first layer is the local distance, and second layer is the real geographic distance. And since the neon light can only be seen as like one color in each tube, so different colors actually represent different countries. So I believe there is over it's like 14 or 15 different type of cuisine. So there are 14 and 15 different types of color of light in there. And yeah, so that's why I can see some of the loosened tube is actually I believe it's Mexico cuisine, so that's why density is a little bit loose. And then for those dense tube, probably it's from like East Asia or some countries over there. Yeah.
Great. And again, I wasn't sure of the scale. Roughly how long was that object that we saw in the gallery?
I think the models in the gallery is actually scaled down a little bit. So in my imagination, if this is gonna be a real like physical installation, it should be like 5 feet height and 25 feet wide and long in both width and length. So yeah.
Will it have a dynamic like with neon? Do they kind of flicker on, or is it kind of active, and how does it become active?
Yeah, so for the current stage, the only renderings I made, it's just like it's like a rotation around these models. But the animation is actually my next step. Along with the potential physical installation, I'm trying to play around with different effects on those neon lights, like switch on and switch off. And this simple animation can represent some different meanings. Like for example, I can use data from March 2020 to March 2021. So if some restaurants were closed during the pandemic, I can switch off that light. So there will be another meaning, like another layer of meaning to this sculpture through the effect.
Actually, when I look at the sculpture, I also think of the sound that neon makes. And I just imagine what incredible sounds that soundscape that object would make would be quite dramatic as well.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think maybe a tremendous simplification will be added to this sculpture if it's really gonna go to a physical installation. Since the weight and the cost and all the electricity part, probably a possible solution is a LED strip. Used to instead of the real neon light. Yeah, but anyway, that's all the next step. I'm actually planning right now. Do some research about material, the cost. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona and Anthony, for your questions, and the students for your responses. We want to congratulate today's student presenters for showing their thoughtful and creative work. We want to extend our immense gratitude to our guest artists, Juan Pablo Garcia Sosa, Anthony Dunn, and Fiona Raley for being here today to review our work and providing such insightful feedback. And lastly, we want to thank all of you in the audience for joining us today. Now we'd like to invite a few students and Thesis studio instructors for a quick closing remark. Let's start with the students. Benny?
We would love to give special thanks to all the incredible guest artists. Iris Pipkin, Yo-Yo Ling, Alexandrina Agloro, Benedetta Piantella, Juan Pablo Garcia Sosa, Anthony Dunn, and Fiona Rabi. We are so intrigued by their critical thinking and thought-provoking discussion they brought up with students, which not only help us look closer to the creative process of each thesis project, but also provided us with different perspectives on visioning the role of designers, artists, creative technologists in the future. Again, thank you so much for coming to our symposium. Let me hand it over to the next fellow.
Flavia?
Thank you, Benny. As we all know, we have been living in such unpredictable times, and the past year has been quite challenging for all of us. We've been through this together, and I am so glad I got the opportunity to play a small part and work with such a fabulous bunch of people on the organizing committee who put in all their efforts despite the workload of their own thesis. You all made sure that every student's work gets a special place and organized a successful event. While we are not together physically, you all made sure with your months of hard work that these 3 days were a celebration for each one of us, even in virtual times. So I would just like to congratulate each and every one of you and the entire organizing committee. I consider it to be an honor to be a part of this program and finally this wonderful organizing committee. Thank you. Handing over to next person.
Jungna.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Sophie. And like everyone else, I'm so impressed by all the incredible student works that have been shared in these 3 days at Parallel. And although we had a very unusual thesis year completely online with such limited space, equipment, and other resources, we still managed to complete something that we probably never imagined ourselves to be capable of. And thanks everyone for challenging yourself, for pushing the limits, for making impossible things happen. And I think more importantly, on top of all the skills and techniques we learned and mastered in these 2 years, we're showing the world with these amazing works that there's something we really care about and the dedication to empower and make a change. Thank you, everyone.
Mia?
Hi, our heartfelt thanks also go to the DT community as a whole. I think especially we MFA students in general, and specifically in a time like this, know that 2 years are not a lot of time to get to know everybody as closely as we want to. And nonetheless, DT has managed to build a community that persisted the distance so far and will surely persist time as well. And we found friends, mentors, loved ones, and creative counterparts. And it would not have been possible without them. So thank you all for making this possible. And hopefully this is not the last event, not the last exhibition where peers from our cohort will be represented together. Thank you.
Terry?
Thank you, Sohi. And lastly, we want to give a huge thank you to our audience, our viewers, for taking the time out to hear us, to encourage us. The support is so appreciated. These past 3 days have been the culminating work of not only our efforts as students, but also the work of your motivation, your presence as our audience, even in this virtual world we are living in right now. And so we bid you farewell for now, but not forever. We hope our presentations have left you inspired to keep creating and keep testing the bounds of what this world can be. Have a great night and feel free to circle back to recordings of any of the past 3 days on our symposium website, parsons.edu/DT. Thank you.
Amazing. Let's hear from the faculty. Ayo?
Hey, y'all. I only have 30 seconds, so I'm going to try to make this quick. You know, as a professor, I think you all think that we are here to teach and to guide, you know, but I think also as equally, we're here to learn. And I just want to thank you all so much for what we've learned from you from this last year, you know, with the pandemic and everything, you know, the dedication, the resilience that you all have shown, the community that you all have, you know, have put together is something that is just so remarkable. And I just want to say I am so inspired and I'm so honored to to have been interacting with you all in this time. And I just wanted to say one thing, to make sure that as you move forward, that you recognize that, right? And that you hold on to that tenacity, that you hold on to that resilience. Anytime someone says that it can't be done, you've already proven that it can be done, right? So thank you all so much, learned so much, and you all are a great community. Make sure that you support each other, right? And make sure that we care for each other and learn from each other. So thank you again.
Thanks, Ayo. Chris?
Hey guys, so glad I was asked to be able to have a few seconds here. I'm really excited for all of you heading out into the world. And one thing I was telling my group the other day is that this is really kind of like grad programs are kind of like an on-ramp for what you'll be doing for the next many, many years. And, it's kind of like the momentum is just building, and you have a huge opportunity to keep working on your projects, keep working on your vision, your writing, and then you'll start doing all kinds of things out in the world. And that's kind of what the culmination of this couple of years is all about. It's not about ending, it's about a beginning for you. So, there's been some really thoughtful, really interesting, really introspective, amazing projects, a lot of really great thinking. And I think this it's been a great opportunity to work remotely for a couple of reasons, actually. In terms of focus, it's been extremely valuable to everyone to be able to be sort of wired in and also be able to connect with themselves, each individual be really connected. Yeah, there's some issues about, not being able to be together all the time and connect in a group. But in fact, in a global, design world where we work remotely all the time, I work in multiple countries and multiple states daily. This is a pretty good warm up for working internationally and collaborating around the world. So I actually think it's kind of a gift in disguise for a lot of people. So this is our new office. This is our new real estate for now. And it's not a bad place to be in your living room and working on a project around the world. So congratulations to all of you, and really a great honor to be part of it.
Thanks, Chris. Harpreet?
Hi all, a terrific program with lots of exciting work. And I'm going to quote actually some of my students. A rush of memory from the dreams that just left, eerie feelings from a nature's beacon, the orange skies, communication breakdown between families in homes. All of these and more heartfelt, things that happened during quarantines became motivation for students to do creative work. Quick shout out to my students between Jason's Bread and Code, Yichan's Stream Dancing, Akshay's Talking Planters, and many others. There's a whole universe of conversations that you all have started. And I just want to congratulate all of you that you're not ending with the projects that you've done, you are actually starting in the world with your projects. So thank you all for amazing work that you've done during this time.
Thanks, Harpreet. John?
Hello, everybody. Barbara and I just wanted to wish you, a very fond farewell, but hopefully a temporary one. You all did just incredible work this semester. We're really proud of you. And as the world begins to kind of move back to normal, with ginormous air quotes around that word, we urge you all to go out and really find your people. This is, I think many of your people are watching right now. So this is, to Chris's point, like, you have formed a community, and take those people out with you. You want to find that community that is going to help you to stay weird, that'll remind you to keep pushing boundaries and really just making things that matter in the world. So thank you all so much, and congratulations. We've learned a lot from you too.
Thanks, John. Catherine?
Okay, so to all of you who are graduating, who have presented your work here in this fabulous event, I just want to say thank you so much for bringing so much of yourselves to your work, to your classes, to your commitment to this program. And I think it really shows in the ways in which you've been able to communicate the results of this academic year in this program. And I just want to say to all of you, thank you for spending the time with us these 2 years. sometimes under very challenging circumstances, but I have to say that as faculty, we look back on classes as they graduate with so much fondness and so much optimism for your future. And if, for those of you who are in New York, please feel free to stop by, say hello to us. Those of you around the world, if you ever find yourselves back in New York City, let us know. And just nothing but extreme sort of optimism, hope, and just true excitement for what you all are going to do in the world. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being a part of our lives.
Thanks, Catherine. Melanie?
Hey, all. So we all know that to be able to design is to be able to play, and that to design and to play, you need to think in a way that is fluid and plastic, and reject ways of thinking that are fixed and static. And based on the work that we all saw, you all clearly have that amazing capacity. It is so amazing, amazingly apparent from your work. You all speak eloquently about your work, but your work really stands on its own now. So you know all about little boxes that the world tries to put us in, and you can fit into them if you choose to, but please know that you absolutely do not have to, because you all have your own amazing, weird, and wonderful shapes. And beyond that, I am now so excited and thankful to be your colleague. So thank you, colleagues. Kat.
Thank you, Melanie. Last but not least, Richard.
Okay, I'll be repeating a few things, but what has impressed me the most this semester was how incredibly thoughtful, friendly, and collaborative the students were in the semester, and especially on Zoom, spread all over the planet. And also the projects are so diverse and so varied, even just within our own section. But everyone chipped in, everybody really gave their thoughts and really helped each other out, whether that was on Zoom, in brainstorming sessions together, or even on Slack channels throughout the week, just like, hey, I thought of this thing, look at it. And so you created amazing projects, but I think the connections and the friends and the acquaintances that you've made and how you've influenced each other, that will be at least as important as the work that you've created. So a really important thing, do stay in touch wherever you are, and when you are close to each other in a city or a country, call each other up and meet up and see what's up. And I guess since I'm the last person, the other thing I wanted to say is you have all worked so hard, and we have all seen the amazing results of that, all of that work, and can be really proud of yourself. But just like it's really important to work very hard, it's also important to take care of yourself. So take a really good break, sleep in, party, see your friends, see your family, and take care of yourself.
Thanks, Richard. And this brings our symposium to a close. As a reminder, this live event is one part of Parallel, a multi-dimensional digital space hosted by the 2021 graduating classes of Parsons BFA and MFA Design and Technology. You can head over to parsons.edu/DT to view the entirety of our work. Thank you for joining us.